5-door Cadillac. Well, keep headed on.
Well, hello again. Welcome into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan, joined as always by PLPC Carla McCormick.
Whoop, whoop.
How you doing?
Carla's in the house.
You always get our producer's attention. Rapid Ruben Wright.
Because he knows I love him so much.
Flying us low, high, and in between. How you doing, Ruben?
Oh, I am doing excellent. Good evening, everybody. I am happy to be here once again.
We are happy to have you here. Have either one of you ever had a garden?
I love to garden.
Do you?
You want me to tell you how gardening helped me stay sober my whole first year?
Did it? Well, I don't want you to tell us right now. I want you to tell us when we come back. So gardening is a important
It's great
thing
therapy.
for you.
Wow. It was huge.
Well, how about you, Ruben?
My mom always had a garden, and I always had to help. She also had a giant fig tree that was the bane of my existence. It was huge, had to go out and pick figs and get stung by bumblebees, and it was a whole thing.
But I'm sure you miss it now.
No.
No. Well, we're going to savor the senses today. We are going to look at the garden in every sense and season. Our life strategist is Tova Martin, and we will dive into that. We will, pardon the pun, we'll dig into that.
Ooh.
We will plow through it
Oh, jeez.
when we come back here on Strategies for Living. Thank you for tuning in. Folks, we're presented by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Been helping individuals and families for 60 years. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacobs Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. Coming back to meet life strategist Tova Martin and learn about the garden in every sense and season this evening here on Strategies. Stay with us. If we're talking
I come to the garden.
of course you do. Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for a Living, 1017 FM, 710 KEEL. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC Carla McCormick. Let's welcome to the program now Tova Martin, who woke up one morning, looked at her 7-acre Connecticut garden, and realized that she wasn't grasping its full sensory potential, and that's when the awakening began. She is fanatical. She's passionate about organic gardening, and she's the author of Tasha Tudor's Garden, as well as many other gardening books. Her articles appear in a broad range of magazines and periodicals, including Country Gardens and Garden Design and Coastal Home, Martha Stewart's Living and Garden Illustrated. She lectures extensively all over the country. What she loves most is linking with fellow gardeners. So we welcome Tova Martin to Strategies for Living. Miss Martin, welcome.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
So would you like to hear Carla's gardening story as much as I want to hear it, Tova?
Sure.
Okay, so gardening is, you said gardening was important for you.
Well, gardening was something I could do when I first got sober. I had a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
So it was in the springtime, so I bought a tiller, and I started tilling, and I thought, I'll just have a couple of tomato plants or a couple of vegetables. And every evening about 5 o'clock, when it was the witching hour, I was like, So I'd go outside, and I'd pull weeds, and I'd water, and then I would till some more. And by the end of the summer, my garden was the size of 3 tennis courts.
Whoa.
I had about 35 tennis plants, 35 tomato plants.
That's because you're a tennis player, so you just think in tennis terms.
I do think in tennis terms. And I am without a doubt pretty sure that it kept me sober that very first summer.
Wow.
And, there's something therapeutic about digging in the dirt and sweating and getting dirt under your nails. And planting a seed or a little bitty teeny tiny plant and watching it grow into something that you can harvest is just, it's just the best feeling in the world.
I love it. What a story.
It's a true story.
Yeah.
Wow.
What
I'm wondering is what you did with all those the fruits of all those 35 tomatoes.
Well, we ate squash till we turned into a squash, and then we made spaghetti sauce and everything that you can think that we can, and then we gave a lot away. I had a lot of friends that summer.
And probably some that said, stop.
They did. They
Stop.
were like, enough tomatoes.
Enough with the tomatoes. They're probably having tomato ice cream and tomato for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
We even froze tomato sauce in ice trays to make like tomato sauce cubes and things. I mean, it was ridiculous.
I love it. So, Tova, you've been a gardener for a long time. You've written extensively. You've traveled throughout the country and lectured extensively. You woke up one day, realized I'm not fully taking advantage of the sensory potential of my garden. When did that happen for you, and how did that happen?
It's one of those things. As gardener, Carla can attest to this. You're running around and you're nursing and nurturing and caring for all those plants, and sometimes you forget what it's really all about. And I was that person. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm really almost a maniacal gardener. And a friend of mine said to me, do you ever think of like sitting on your front porch and really soaking it in? And I had to admit that I hadn't done that. Spare time I always spent running around caring for and nurturing. So I tried it, and I suddenly realized there was so much that I could really, that I was missing about my garden. And a lot of it has to do with senses that we aren't used to plugging in, like listening and touching and smelling. all those things. We look at our garden, but often we're even looking at it thinking, what do I need to do? Where's that weed and that sort of thing.
I was wondering, just listening to you and listening to Carla, if one of the things, and you talk about, you asked the question in the book, what is it? What is it about gardening? Are gardeners just natural doers? Just kind of focused on the doing because of how much has to be done, I guess, in a garden?
I think one thing that Carla did was that she really she really plugged in her inner nurturer, and there is so much to do, and it really can be very it can be a great occupation and a great hobby. So that yes, there's a lot of caring that needs to be done, and in the garden in every sense and season, the book, I talk a lot about things that you can learn and do better as a gardener as a result of plugging in, for sure. But I think it feeds itself back and forth. You work harder in it, you think harder in it, you plug in more in it, and it gives to you more, and then you think of more. It's a relationship, I guess.
It is a relationship. That's a really good analogy, or because you do have a even when people you hear talk about their roses, or their flower gardens, it's a relationship. I really like that you just said that. There is something, I don't think you can be a gardener and not have hope. When you're trimming a rose bush all the way down, and you have hope and you have belief that it's going to grow back and be more beautiful. When you plant a seed, you know that seed's going to come up. So I just think gardeners by nature are just naturally optimistic people. What do you think, Toba?
I totally agree. A lot of it is faith that you have faith that that plant is going to come back the following year. I'm in New England, so we have a nasty winter, and just watching them, that will to live. It's just that I think that was probably therapeutic for you too. Just watching a plant's will to live, and when you, as you said, when you prune back a plant and have it come back even more beautiful than before you worked with it. That's part of it. That relationship, and I talk about the beauty of pruning and actually working with a plant so that it is all it can be and more beautiful as a result of your interaction with it. That's really fulfilling.
You call your place Furthermore.
I'm a writer, so that's a word I use often, and I am really. If I could, I'd plant up every inch of the place. I really could. I really would. But there are limits, and I do have some grass, but the lawn is diminishing all the time.
Do you are you one of those folks that do you raise a lot of what you eat?
I do. Like Carla, I that was one of the. I guess that was one of my entries into gardening. Actually, that I was. As a child, I grew. I was fascinated by growing food. I think that's a great way to get kids into it, and that's really fulfilling. I have an herb garden, and I have several vegetable gardens, and I try to grow most of what I eat in the summer.
How'd the idea for the book come to you?
Well, again, just sitting there and noticing what I didn't utilize enough, and thinking that other people, I'm sure, are in the same situation as me. That when they and I think when I started to plug in, I saw, like, for example, um, planting things that what I call it the daily buzz. Just learning what insects to bring in, that sound, and birds use in your garden and need in your garden. That was a real, you know, an eye opener, but also, I guess, an ear opener for me too.
Mm.
You really get a bigger picture when you start doing this, and many times I was trying to. It was a toss up. What sense I would talk about something in? For example, herbs. I talk about them in sight, but you could talk about them in smell too.
I wonder if we have a nature deficit, today in the way we live our lives. If most of us are, too busy and too focused on life in the fast lane and in the city, to really appreciate some of what your book is calling us to stop and appreciate, Tova.
That's a really profound thought, actually, because I think that we aren't. Just think about all the things you sort of ignore in a day on purpose. You think of sound as something that gets in the way of what you're, just something negative, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't think of it as positive.
Yeah.
And smells are often thought of as negative rather than positive. Ooh, that doesn't smell good. Rather than thinking about all the, really, even the smell of, we're coming on into autumn, the smell of the change of seasons, that autumn smells different than summer.
You may think we're talking about the garden tonight, but we're talking about the senses. We're savoring the senses this evening with Tova Martin. She's the author of The Garden in Every Sense and Season. Tova Martin, our life strategist, this evening here on Strategies for Living. Be right back.
Although we both lie close together, we feel miles apart inside. Was it something I said or something I did?
Addiction takes a Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for a Living, 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC Carla McCormick, and Tova Martin, the author of The Garden in Every Sense and Season. That is out at your favorite bookseller. And you want to learn to savor, to focus on the smells and the sounds and what we're really talking about here is mindfulness, aren't we, Tova?
Yeah, we sure are. You know something I just thought of too. What is more basic than playing in the mud?
Well, you got a point there.
Yeah. Touching the earth. You said it in your introduction. Touching the earth is just very, very basic. Just a sort of a therapeutic thing to do.
And you know,
really.
our perceptions are universal, aren't they? I mean, they cut across cultures, and they cut across economic, our roles and our strata, if you will. They're universal.
But try this. Yeah, try this. That when you're a gardener, that you really get, for example, the sense of flowers. There's no perfume that really captures that real, honest-to-goodness scent. And so it's something that, anybody who works in the soil, and thinks of smelling the air will, that rose. Carla was talking earlier about roses. That rose smell. First of all, they smell differently morning, noon, and night. That the scent is different.
Yeah.
But it's the way you define it is very very immediate to you and personal to you. But it also is something that you will remember. Our child will remember when they grow up. That scent is something that you tend to remember.
Yeah.
That is so true, because the smell of mud, how the mud smells, or the barn.
Or the rain.
Yeah.
Or the rain.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it takes you right back there. The thing about gardening is also, I even like to cut grass, because first of all, it smells so great, but then you get to do it, and then you stand back and you go, look what I did.
How
and
many things?
How good it looks.
Yeah. How many things do we get to do like that? And Tova, I guess it's that way in the garden too, isn't it?
It is that immediate pat on the back and gratification that something you've done, and you plant. I've so often planted a flower, and then just turned around 5 seconds later and seen the insects just come right to it, and it feels so good. It really does. You feel like, first of all, you feel like you're really contributing.
Yeah.
And gardening is very much you very much feel like you're contributing. You're helping the earth in so many ways. It is really, as we said, very gratifying and universal.
Now, you walk through the seasons in this book in a very, again, different way, using the senses. Before you wrote the book, did you have, this is probably an unfair question, I apologize for asking it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Did you have a favorite season before writing this book, and did it change with the writing of the book?
What really changed was that my appreciation for winter I hadn't really appreciated winter until I really started thinking about what I could get out of that season. And it is a lot about, that there aren't that many stimuli. So all of a sudden, when something is brightly colored, or a berry just some winter berries.
Yeah.
They're just like, wow.
Yeah.
This is holly berries. Wow, these are just so beautiful. And that's the season that you really appreciate plugging in and do it very intentionally, one sense at a time. But but I always, throughout the book, I found discoveries, and that's again, every gardener is going to find out their own, I call it script, for living. That any gardeners could sit down and write their own journal of what they've discovered and how it's made for a better, it really, in a way, it makes for a better world, because, again, you're becoming a steward of so many things. And again, it's so fulfilling.
What is the in the book, the and by the way, the book is out from Timber Press. There's some beautiful, you're mentioning winter here. There's some beautiful photographs throughout the book, but particularly the winter. I mean, it's kind of surprising, some of the beauty in your garden in the winter.
Yeah. It is. I actually grow a lot of houseplants, and having those plants by your side, it's a totally different relationship. It's they're like family.
Yeah.
To you, and people say, "Oh, I have a brown thumb inside," and how do you remember to water the plants? And I would say, do you forget to feed your pet? They really become like family, and you notice things about them that you hadn't noticed before, just like the berries and that sort of thing. You really do. You more apt to smell the leaves. It's just another level of pleasure that gardening gives to you.
Yeah, you've written some other books. One of them is The Unexpected House Plant, isn't it?
Well, that's because I love to take plants that aren't really considered to be house plants and bring them inside, because often they're like a token of the garden that you bring in, and so it makes you feel like you've got the garden close by. So I bring in things that I associate with my garden, like hens and chicks and that sort of thing.
Yeah. What's if people are listening to us and are being motivated by yours and Carla's stories to, well, geez, I want to do that. What would be your beginning advice to someone who is wanting to dive in, Tova?
That's a really good point. I've never really thought of that before, but when you said dive in, I would say if I were to start all over again, I would suggest starting really small. And Carla was talking about, expanding her garden, and I think the fact that she started about talking about tilling. I would say, take Carla's lead and do it yourself. Till it yourself, and be part of the whole process. That's like so much fun, and so again, really part of the relationship. But start small and then expand out and savor each foot of soil that you've worked on and nurtured.
And maybe be willing to turn 360 degrees, all the way up, all the way around.
Well, yes, and up and down, and feel your way into it. Touch, think about being present, touching the earth, and thinking about how it feels, thinking about how it feels to remove those stones, thinking about the softness of the moss and the blades of grass. I call it the braille of the garden. Really feeling the braille of the garden. But it's also about when you're out there, feeling the beat of the sun, feeling the kiss of the breeze on your cheek. All those gifts
and
that being outside gives us.
And they are gifts, and they are gifts from being outside. And I guess my only advice would be just do it. I mean, there is no right or wrong way to garden. There's nothing to be into. I mean, people say, "Oh, well, how do you do that?" And that must be so hard. And it's not. I mean, it's till up a row. Do it by hand. Plant 3 tomato plants. It's and okay, if they die, then figure out what you did and try again. It's really, really not hard. It takes some attention, it takes maybe a little bit of diligence, but it's not rocket science, and it is truly rewarding when you plant a little small plant and you come back and you've got beautiful flowers. I mean, even if they're just Gerber daisies or marigolds or something super easy to grow, there's just this reward that you get. You go, I did this. I see this zucchini. I grew this.
This is my zucchini.
Yeah.
And it's feeding me, but also, I mean, I think a lot of it is sensitivity. That again, when you start plugging in and you become more sensitive and you notice more, you see, before you fail. You start reading the body language of a plant. And you're saying, "Oh, gee, I think I'm really overwatering this."
Yeah.
Reading the body language of a plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because she's right. I mean, she said it early in the beginning. You have a relationship. I have a relationship with my lawn and my flowers, and have a relationship with my little bitty teeny tiny carrot seeds that grow into carrots.
And what Tova you just said. I mean, it's I have a dachshund, and I've a little bit. My little dachshund comes to work with me every day at the office, and she's not the only dachshund I've had. So one of the things that resonated with me when you said, your plants, you don't forget to feed your pets.
Right.
So why would you forget to water your plants? And then go on to think about that, it's every plant's different, and just like every dachshund's different. They're dachshunds, but they're all different.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. We're savoring the senses with Tova Martin today. The garden in every sense and season. We're talking about it this evening here on Strategies.
That don't bother me at all. Playing solitaire till dawn with a deck of 51. Smoking cigarettes.
If you or someone you love is struggling to pay attention, Learning RX wants you to know there is an alternative.
It is so frustrating. Every night, Joshua has such a hard time reading and doing homework. He just can't pay attention long enough to get anything done.
Low attention span might be caused by weak cognitive skills. The same
welcome back. I think we may have an Earth Angel on with us this evening. She is our life strategist, Tova Martin, and the author of The Garden in Every Sense and Season. Welcome back into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL PLPC. Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist, David McMillan. Do you have an indispensable tool, Tova, that it's a have to have, or are you one of those people that have tons of tools, or just a few that are indispensable?
That's a really good question. I bring a little caddy with my favorite tools out to the garden, but I always say that your most valuable tool is your hands, and you really have to be careful that you don't get injuries with your hands. I always suggest that people wear gloves, even though, again, that handshake with the soil, but you have plenty of an opportunity for that, even with gloves on. I have a little tool. It's called a homie, or a hand hoe, and it's actually really ancient. It was used, thousands of years ago. One of the early tools, and it's just like a little. It's a little hoe, and it's just got a crooked blade, and it is great for doing everything. It's great for digging, and it's great. It's like an extension of my hand. I always joke that I look like Captain Hook when I go out there. But I suggest that people think about the tools they use, and be careful about not getting injuries in the garden. It's really important.
Yeah. How much time does it take you when you're going to buy a new tool? How much time do you spend at the hardware store, or at the Home Depot, or wherever you buy them?
I wish I could say it was one visit. I usually go back. I usually go home, think about it, go back again, because it is so important. The tools you use, sharpening the tools so that they actually work well. My shovel, I'm a very small person, so I actually found this vintage woman's shovel with a swan neck, so the impact doesn't go right into my wrist. It actually diffracts the impact away from my wrist, and it has what they call YD handle rather than a T handle. So again, the impact is diffracted. And the book talks about using tools that don't that aren't apt to cause you harm. That will make you be a gardener over the long haul without making back.
Carla won't ever answer my question when I ask her about who's her favorite kid. So I'll pick on you, Tova. What's your favorite plant?
Oh, I'm so fickle. It changes daily. If you ask me right now, I'd tell you it's an aster. But if you asked me in the spring, I'd tell you it would be a columbine. I'm an avid collector, and that's again about sight. Noticing the differences and the subtleties of color, and making associations, looking out. And I always say your eye is so forgiving that you balance colors, and I'm particularly a Pollyanna. I just tend to love everything. But any combination. I say, don't garden for your neighbor. Garden for yourself, and it actually, you develop a taste. You develop your own taste, and go for it.
Yeah.
If you love really strident colors, go for strident colors. Don't do the pastel garden.
I used to drive around in the high end neighborhoods, the fancy neighborhoods, and I would look to see what their gardeners were planting in their yards and what combinations they put together of the flowers and the colors and how they looked. And then I would go to the local store, sometimes Home Depot, sometimes the local places, and buy those plants and go home and try to recreate it. That's what I did. I couldn't afford a fancy gardener, so I
Yeah.
copycatted.
Well, gardeners definitely tend to be idea thieves. That's absolutely. How many ideas have you stolen? I mean,
All of mine.
All of them. We do that in counseling too. I don't know. Maybe they do it in other professions.
So I have a question. Do you prefer your vegetable garden or your flower gardens?
I think my vegetable garden, actually, because I really do. Every bite is so delicious and scrumptious. You bite, and I had the ugliest peaches on earth. I have to tell you, they are truly ugly peaches, but they are so good. Oh, wow.
Doesn't matter how ugly if they are, if they're juicy and sweet and.
That's like ugly tomatoes. I mean, even if they're ugly, they're yours.
Yeah, they're yours.
And there's something about like, oh, I'm going to cook dinner. Oh, let me go and get some Brussels sprouts from my own garden. Let me go pull some carrots from my own garden. How cool is that? I mean, it's just cool.
And then and feeding your family and that sort of thing. It feels really, really good. Sharing vegetables, it just feels tremendously good, and it's really fun to work the I call it succession planting, when you figure, okay, if I don't plant lettuce every 2 weeks, I'm going to probably run out of lettuce because I'm a big salad fan. That sort of thing. Just thinking about the routine of it is really fun.
Well, speaking of that, let us go to break. We are with Tova Martin this evening. The book is The Garden in Every Sense and Season. I didn't even get a from either one of you guys. I can't believe it. Can't believe you let me get away with that.
That's okay. We're feeling good. I'm gardening in my mind.
I love it.
I'm planting my winter vegetables.
Be right back with Tova Martin.
Every time I go out and pick me a bit, homegrown tomatoes, homegrown tomatoes. What life be without homegrown tomatoes?
When your child or
Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC. Carla McCormick. We are with one of the greatest garden writers of our time. And her new book is The Garden in Every Sense and Season. It's out from Timber Press. You can also find her at tovamartin.com. But you can find The Garden in Every Sense and Season at your favorite bookseller right now, out from Timber. Okay, so whether we have multiple acres, Tova, or whether we have our backyard, we can do this.
You know, you don't even need your backyard. You don't even need real estate. You can do this in your window. I even grow vegetables inside. Is that crazy or what? But I do. I grow vegetables in my window in the winter. So you don't need. That's how even-handed gardening is. That anybody can do it. You don't even need to be landed.
I seem to hear under the surface here, as I listen to you, Tova, and to you, Carla, the kind of the warning that gardening I may get addicted if I start.
You will.
Yeah.
You will.
But is that a positive addiction?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And there's so many rewards. You get to eat. It's beautiful. It smells wonderful. You have that sense of instant gratification. And, I mean, there's just so many good things. So, Tova, I have a question. Fall is here. And fall is absolutely my favorite season here in Louisiana, in the Deep South. Mm-hmm. You said you liked winter for the beauty, but what season do you get excited about? Is it spring or is it summer or is it fall?
Yeah, it's got to be spring. Just because of that, it follows the winter and it's just the awakening. And it's so exciting to watch. But autumn, just to talk about autumn and the way it changes itself every single day. Around here, one day, the foliage is kind of, maybe a slight blush, and the next day it's fire. It's just on fire. It's a beautiful thing.
We for us, for me anyway, it's the end of summer. I imagine your winter gets tiresome, our summer gets tiresome, so by the end of the summer,
I got so excited this morning walking out to get the paper, and we've had this rain this week, so the cold front, and to walk first day this morning to walk out to get the paper and to feel that little nip in the air that hasn't been there before.
Yeah, that little nip, and to smell the new smells. I'm sure, you could follow the dachshund's lead. I'm sure that she puts her nose up to the air all the time.
She puts her nose in a lot of places.
Well, you'll have if you have never visited the Deep South in the spring, you should come and see the azaleas in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Oh,
they are.
Yes.
It is a sight to behold.
And you were mentioning peaches just up the road in Ruston. We have a peach festival. Yeah.
One thing we are blessed with. Lots of agriculture here that is probably different than from what you guys have up north. So. And that's a fun thing to see.
It is, and the difference in the seasons. That, I bet you do houseplants more in the summer when it's really truly hot out.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tova, for the book. Thank you for coming and being a part of Strategies for Living. This has been great.
One of these days, I'm going to knock on your door, Tova, and say, "Hey, I'm here."
Carla's here.
I'm going to come see those tennis courts of
vegetables.
There
Come on.
Go. Folks, thank you for tuning into Strategies for Living. We've been presented by CATA, by Jerry Anderson State Farm, Learning RX, Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, Jacob's Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call for life strategist Tova Martin, for Reuben Wright, for PLPC Carla McCormick. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. See you next time on Strategies for Living.
Breaking news and trending talk. This is 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. KEEL, Shreveport.